Hi there, my name is Kelsey Gibson, and I'm here to share with you a little bit about what I've been learning about Psalms 1. You know when you hear the first note of a song that you love? Your mind wakes up, your ears perk up, and you smile. To me, Psalm 1 is that beautiful first note in the symphony of highs and lows, crescendos and decrescendos that is the book of Psalms. It begins like this. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. Blessed. Did you know that the word blessed in the Bible points to God's redemptive presence? We see this from the very beginning in Genesis 1:28. When God blessed Adam and Eve and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it." And we see this again in the ultimate example of God's redemptive presence in Mary, when the Holy Spirit comes upon her, and she conceives Jesus, and she is called blessed among women. Blessed is the man. God's redemptive presence is at work in the man who chooses his friends and his counselors wisely. I have personally seen God show up in miraculous ways when I have prayed for godly friends and wise counselors. There is a principle here. The provision of godly friends is part of God's redeeming work in our lives. We see just how important this is to the Lord all through the Old Testament, as God over and over again calls Israel to separate themselves from the nations around them that worship idols. God knows that we can't be besties with the world and remain in him. Israel couldn't, and neither can we. We see this contrast in verse 1 of Psalms 1. We have two options, two paths that we can walk on: the way of the wicked and the way of the godly. The entire Bible is ultimately a story of the godly and the sinner, and a good God who constantly calls us back to him. At any moment, we are choosing which path that we're going to be on. We choose which path we are on when we choose who we hang out with, what we listen to, what our eyes see, what we delight in, and what we think about. When we choose Jesus, when we choose wisdom, choose to delight in the Word, our lives become stable, deep, rooted. Psalms continues, "He is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in season, and its leaf does not wither. And all that he does, he prospers." Down at Cypress Bend Park, there's a tree that's growing up through a massive rock in the middle of the river. I've lived through 3 floods in New Braunfels. I'm not sure how old this little tree is, but I can guarantee it's been through some seasons. It may have even stood firmly rooted while the currents rushed over it. This tree came up through the rock in the middle of the river. I can't help but think that that was not an easy way to start its life. It found its roots in that good riverbed soil, found the crack in the rock, and slowly, surely pushed its way up to the light. But now, whenever the waters rise, its roots are protected by the rock that it struggled to grow through. We will go through seasons of drought and flood in our lives. The Bible promises us that life will be hard. Jesus said, "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." When we plant ourselves firmly into the rock of our salvation, and we place ourselves in community with other people who are wholeheartedly pursuing God, this psalm tells us exactly what will happen. We will prosper and we will yield good fruit. I want that, and I want it for you too. Psalm 1 continues, "The wicked are not so, but are like chaff that the wind drives away. If the wise are like a tree, the wicked are like chaff." But what is chaff? When a seed or a grain is grown, in order to be able to be eaten, the husk or the outside of the shell has to be removed. That is chaff. And in those days, they would beat the grain to break off that chaff, and then they would hold the grain up in the air and they would sift it, and the wind would blow through and it would blow away that chaff. And we don't live in an agricultural age anymore, so you probably have never beat grain or sifted it to get rid of the chaff, but today chaff is often used to refer to trash. I think of white grocery bags. On a windy day, you'll see them blowing across I-35, recklessly careening wherever the wind takes them until they finally are caught in some thorny plant. When we listen to those whose agendas are against the Lord's, when we surround ourselves with those who love their sin, the Bible clearly tells us what will happen. We will be like that white grocery bag. Therefore, the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. James Clear in Atomic Habits says that every decision we make is a vote for the kind of person we are becoming. May we become righteous women, enabled by Jesus to hunker down when the whole world feels like it's passing us by, to do the hard and holy work of staying put, delighting in Jesus, and bearing good fruit. May we be trees planted by the riverbed, bearing fruit in season. That's my prayer for you today.